Good afternoon. We are live. Hi, guys. Welcome.
Hello.
Hi.
Bob. Hi,
Hi,
Brian.
everyone.
Sophia.
Hey,
Welcome
guys.
to everybody joining us, sheltering in place or planning travel. Great to see
Yeah.
you guys. Well,
Likewise.
today I am joined by some all-star veteran travel journalists. And today is Keep Travel Dreaming, Episode 6, The Secret to Engaging Content. I am super excited for this. Sophie and I have a ton of questions for Brian Major joining us, executive editor of travelpulse.com, and Bob Curley, freelance travel writer, who is a jack of all trades. And this is Project Positive Planet, a collaboration with Well World TV, Caribbean We, and Papilla. Hi, guys. How's everybody on this Travel Tuesday?
Doing great. Thank you.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
good.
travel dreaming.
It's the only kind of travel we can do right now.
Feels like we're moving the bar, though. We're getting a little closer to actual travel. We were just talking about, particularly in the Caribbean, what destinations have you guys heard that are opening up?
Well, St. Lucia, which is part of the reason I was hoping to talk a little bit about St. Lucia today, is supposedly opening on June 4th. It may actually take a little longer than that for the resorts to open, but they're starting to, they're definitely starting to hit the reset button. And Brian, I think you mentioned Turks and Caicos, Grenada, right? So there's a few others.
I've heard reports about Grenada, Turks and Caicos, and today I noticed that Antigua and Barbuda not only is opening, I believe it's June 1, but also I got an email from one of the top resorts there, Elite Island Resorts, says their properties will be open. They'll be ready to accept guests. And so we definitely see some things opening up.
And Anguilla as well. And I think some of these destinations are the destinations that have had very few or no COVID cases, which is part of the reason they're ahead of the curve a little bit. So.
Yeah.
And someone else mentioned in the chat Aruba. And I know our property that we featured last week, Buketi and Tara, has a plan to reopen already. They're opening. They've announced.
I saw. I got a press release today actually from Aruba talking about their reopening plan, and I know Buketi and Tara resorts are well on their way to creating a post-COVID or a COVID-friendly environment at their resorts, which I think a lot of the resorts are doing as well. Obviously, they're focusing on cleanliness and social distancing and everything that we're all talking about here, but in a resort context.
Great.
Yeah, I really think that's going to be the question for the resorts, and just how what the client experience is now going to be like with social distancing in place. And I know the resort folks are talking with their destinations about the new protocols that they want to institute, and that'll extend from everything to checking in to anything you do at a resort. So we'll have to see how that kind of plays out and how it impacts the customer experience.
And also in the chat, we have some great people, dear friends of mine from Puerto Rico, Joe Marie and Trudy, and they say Puerto Rico is reopening. They are ready for us.
Good to hear.
Excellent about Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, I am ready. Let's jump in and just start travel dreaming. We have a beautiful property that Bob is going to speak about first. Dear friends of ours in St. Lucia. Bob, you've been to the property. I have not visited.
I have had the privilege of staying at Jade Mountain, and it's definitely one of my favorite resorts in the Caribbean. Just an amazing luxury property. It's the kind of place, it's funny because before I ever went there, I saw photos of it, and I was convinced that these photos were photoshopped, that the colors were just too vivid and the scenes were just too amazing. And then I got there, and you walk in your room, which they call sanctuaries, and they're open on one side to the view of the Pitons, which are the Twin Mountains. And sorry guys. Yeah, I mean, the pictures, if anything, don't do it justice. It's a gorgeous resort, and just reflective of the destination, which I think St. Lucia is one of the most beautiful, if not the most beautiful destination in the Caribbean. And in the context of what we were just talking about, is also planning to open up again as early as June 4th. So tourism.
Belize, we have Wolfgang joining from Belize, and Belize is opening as well, we hear. So I'm going to share a video of the beach from Jade Mountain. So we can all dream and visualize. Okay, not the beach.
All right, well, I can promise you there is in fact a beach at Ants. I mean, just to put the context around that, what you're seeing actually is video of the former cocoa plantation at Ants, where they have a very extensive network of mountain biking trails and hiking trails, and it's really beautiful. Actually, it's there's still a lot of cocoa plants which they use to make chocolate on property. And all sorts of flowering tropical plants and trees, and as you can see, the ruins of the old plantation are there, and that whole area it's actually a beautiful aspect of the resort, because you have the resort property on Anse Chastanet, which is also coincidentally the name of the beach resort. There's two resorts, Jade Mountain, which is up on the mountain basically, up on the cliff, and then down at the beach you have Anse Chastanet. So they have a nice beach there, and then if you go around a point, you probably not even a 5-minute walk really. You come to Anse Mamie, which is very very private. It's got another beautiful beach. It's got a beach bar, and then has all these active activities kind of up in the forest above the beach. So just one aspect of that resort.
And I know we all know Carolyn pretty well, and they really pride themselves on sustainability and what they create within the resort. Just from her storytelling, I think they're exceptional storytellers for that property, and great advocates for St. Lucia as a destination. And that's one of the reasons I would be so excited to visit and experience that.
Yeah, I mean, you have as I said, the cocoa is grown organically, and then they're taking the cocoa beans right over to the resort, and you have and they offer classes, and they make their own chocolate right there. They also have a very lively lionfish program where they go out and dive on the reef and spearfish lionfish every day and bring it back, and they prepare it as sushi and other things in the restaurants. So, it's an invasive species that nobody in the Caribbean wants around. So they're doing a great job of keeping on top of that, population of fish and putting it to good use. Actually delicious. It's an ugly fish, but it's a delicious fish. So
it's kind of cool that all
Pretty
have
good.
been to Baja Mar, right? You've seen the tank behind the registration desk at Baja Mar where they display the lionfish. They're kind of neat looking, in my opinion.
I guess I guess ugly is the wrong word. They're pretty fish. But they have long spines, long poisonous spines. So it's, you have to be very careful. The guys who go out and fish them know how to capture them and clean them without stabbing themselves with these poisonous spines. Actually, pretty cool. So.
Okay. Any other favorite properties or places you visited, Bob?
In the Caribbean or St. Lucia? I mean, there's so much, right?
Yeah, whatever comes to
We
mind.
were talking about, well, I mean, I'll mention a couple I made. Sugar Beach on St. Lucia is gorgeous. A fantastic honeymoon property if you want the view of the pitons from beach level, as opposed to up on the mountain, the way you get them at Jade Mountain. Sugar Beach has an amazing view, a closer view of the pitons, the pitons are the twin mountains, very famously. Speaking of which, there's my my Piton beer shirt. So those are the pitons. So there's another property called Ladera, which is fairly similar, right down the road from Jade Mountain, also with amazing high altitude, suites with private pools. That, again, I think every resort in St. Lucia that can have a view of the pitons, takes advantage of it. And that's just a beautiful island in general. There's a lot to do. There's a drive-through volcano and good dining. And it just does a lot to recommend. The boating there is excellent. And so I think the other destination that I would talk about is the British Virgin Islands. And I think they've had fairly minimal COVID cases too. I know Moorings, which is the yacht charter company, has just released their protocols for getting their boats back in the water and getting people sailing among the British Virgin Islands again, and the U.S. Virgin Islands as well. So that's an interesting destination in terms of post-COVID because people can get on a boat and be pretty socially isolated, and that's still the main way that people tour that destination is by charter yacht. There are hotels and there's some beautiful private resorts like Guan Island and Scrub Island. So. Again, you might see some of those luxury, high-end private islands opening sooner than some others, and I think the yachting will come back sooner as well. That's another one of the most beautiful destinations in the Caribbean.
I agree. I've only been to the U.S. Side of the Virgin Islands, but BVI is high on my list. I think you've picked two locations. I mean, the Caribbean's so different, but two locations with the best topography. So you must be like a green landscape guy. As long as the water.
That's Bob. Yeah. Green landscape guy.
Green landscapes and beach bars. I think that's my two interests.
Yeah. Have you tried every local beer or rum?
I won't say everyone. I've tried a lot. I've tried a lot of the rums. I've tried a lot of the beers. The Piton beer is, a good one. Is Colwood Distillery in the British Virgin Islands, which is a really cool local distillery. It's been there for 500 years. I think they make rum right from cane. In St. Lucia, you have Chairman's Reserve, which is one of the better rums in the Caribbean. So yeah, I've sampled a few of them. Yeah.
When I lived in Turks, I had friends that had come to visit, and they would beg me. They were like, "Please bring the Turk's Head Lager back with you."
Yeah.
I'm like, "Okay, sure." I'll pack it in my suitcase.
Yeah, beer's hard to transport. Rum's easier to bring with you.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, Brian. Well, thank you, Bob. And Brian, what destinations are you thinking about?
Well, it's difficult when you're talking about the Caribbean because there are so many. I've been blessed and lucky to cover the Caribbean for a while now, and there are just so many parts of the region that I look forward to returning to because they, it sounds cliche, but they really all have distinct elements. Almost all have the beautiful beach and the sand and the sun, as we know, but each is culturally different. And certainly, if you told residents from Trinidad that it's just like Jamaica, you'd have a fight on your hands. So, or Barbados, where this is like where a lot of my family's from, and it's a whole thing. So I'm really kind of looking forward to well, I'll mention Jamaica. Probably most familiar to most Americans, but at the same time, it's so diverse and has so many
Hello?
things to do. Can you hear me? There's so many things to do within Jamaica, which is one of my recommendations. It's one of the places I'm definitely looking forward to returning to. I'd also mention the Bahamas and Puerto Rico. Both have the advantage of the beautiful water, the beautiful topography, but they're also, I think they're going to come back a little quicker than some of the, or be accessible to Americans a little more quickly than some of the other Caribbean destinations, really because of the proximity. It's very close to the East Coast. Folks will be able to get there. It's not that far away. And when they're in Puerto Rico, in fact, they're in the U.S. So I think those destinations will have an advantage as things start to open up. But as we were talking about, just
Diaspora too will play an effect. Like there's so many Caribbean people that are going to want to go home and visit families and things like that.
that is a great point, Stephanie. I think those people will be among the first to return. And they're the folks who are most familiar with their own destination, so they will have the highest comfort level. And coming back will also be determined on the populace here in the U.S. and in Canada. The primary market for almost all of the Caribbean destinations is the U.S. and Canada, and our own level of health, our own level of comfort in returning, and our own ability to get on airplanes and travel again to international destinations is going to be telling for the Caribbean.
Absolutely. Well, do you want to tee up the video that we have and we'll share?
Sure.
Okay. And
Sure, I will discuss a couple of these. Can you guys run that?
sure. Yeah, I have it all teed up. You just want to explain the property?
Yeah. Okay. Absolutely. This is, I believe we're going to go to the Moon Palace Jamaica Grand.
Yeah.
The Moon Palace Jamaica, I should say. It had previously been called the Jamaica Grand. It is in Ocho Rios, Jamaica, and one of the great things about this destination is it's equidistant between Montego Bay and some of the other points of interest within Ocho Rios that you want to visit when you're in Jamaica. So you're perfectly positioned to see almost everything that everyone sees, from Dunn's River Falls to some of the golfing that's available in Montego Bay, to the attractions in Falmouth, the historic town, all right along the same strip there. And this resort is in a beautiful location, long white beach, really terrific. They've got their own scuba program, and it's a renovation of an existing resort, but they've reimagined everything. So we have spacious restaurants, wonderful health and fitness facilities, kind of a beautiful, updated, contemporary style that is relaxing. And although it's large, there's lots of areas for seclusion. Pool areas near the beach, lounges. Of course, we're going to have to again see how these are impacted by social distancing. But I think this resort actually is kind of, positioned well to accomplish those things because it's so spacious. So that's one of my definite favorites.
Property. I love it. And I think they have the only on land surf experience, whatever that thing is called, but you actually get on a surfboard and you're like, yeah, the wave rider.
The flow rider? Yeah.
Flow rider.
Yeah.
Flow rider.
Flow rider. Flow rider.
And Sophia and I are super passionate about wellness and spa, and they actually have one of the largest spas in the Caribbean, and they have this, and I've experienced it, this beautiful circuit of hydrotherapy. It's a really special property, I think, having toured most of the properties in Jamaica. I think it's definitely up there.
It's very special. It's up there. There are many great resorts in Jamaica. I don't want to, not make the impression that there aren't. There are, but this one is very special. And they are, I was speaking with some of the representatives there yesterday, and they gave me like about 4 pages of specials and things that they're doing. But go to their website, Moon Palace Jamaica. You'll find the specials that they're running currently. And also, I want to say the Jamaican government Jamaica has actually been one of the Caribbean destinations to have the higher levels of COVID-19. But when I say higher, that's like 400 cases. So,
I was going to say they've had great recovery numbers too. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think they have done a good job of really managing what's happened there. Sandals Foundation has stepped in and helped folks out and provided rooms in unused hotels for health workers. So the government and the private entrepreneurs and the resorts are really kind of working together to make sure that the destination comes back. I mean, there's no alternative for Caribbean destinations. They have to resume tourism.
Yeah. And they're one of the most highly visited destinations, Jamaica. I mean, when you think of the accessible markets within the Caribbean to everyone, it's Jamaica, Dominican Republic, Mexico kind of top the list of most visited destinations. So all those Jamaica loyalists, I'm sure, will be flocking back.
Absolutely.
And, so we have a video from Moon Palace that we will share now. Gorgeous.
Yeah.
And I've actually been to their other location in Cancun. They have just the two locations. Right? Yeah.
Palace Resorts has several locations in Mexico. I know Jamaica, and I want to say in other Caribbean destinations. I'm kind of not remembering right now, but I know there are other properties in different parts of Mexico. But you can always go to
Cancun. I know that.
What's that called?
Cancun.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
That was their original destination. And they had announced, I think, an additional 800 rooms in Jamaica prior to this.
Yeah, there are like everything prior to this, but they also one of the great things about Palace is they're legitimately upscale luxury. They have partnerships with great brands, certified Angus beef, for example, where you really have a standard for your clients. You travel agents out there.
Okay, Brian. And what other properties did you want to mention in the Caribbean? You had said prior to the call.
Yep, I have a couple. Again, Caribbean, lots of great resorts. I wanted to mention the Hyatt Ziva and Zilara, the Playa Resorts property in Cap Cana. Cap Cana is a large, sprawling development, private development on the Bávaro coast in the Dominican Republic. It is a beautiful, gorgeous stretch of beach. Several resorts there, but it's so large. They really don't kind of run into each other. They're very spacious, very spread apart. And Cap Cana, Hyatt Ziva Zilara Cap Cana is the newest one there. It is kind of what the future of the large all-inclusive is. It's large, but at the same time, there's places for intimacy. It's got a water park. It's great for the family, for the kids, for everyone there. Several room categories so that it's also a side-by-side resort where there are an adults-only side and a family side. So it's great for honeymooners. It's great for groups of adults traveling together. It's great for families and several food options, many food options there, branded restaurants as well as buffets. We may see the end of the buffet right now, but since there are so many.
I was never a buffet. I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
It could be a good thing, yeah.
Good food's good food. So I don't think anyone's necessarily going to miss the buffet format. So, and again, this is a beautiful stretch of beach in the Dominican Republic. So Hyatt Ziva Zalara Cap Cana. You can find it online. Great place. And then I also wanted to mention a personal favorite, the Great Cliff Hotel in the Bahamas. It is we talk about great large resorts. This is a small resort. It's an example of the Caribbean's history. It was built by apparently it started as a 17th century pirate's lookout, so he could see over the coast and see where his enemies were coming from the Bahamas. And it developed here, and it's almost too much to describe. It has gourmet food, one of the world's largest wine cellars. You can dine in this wine cellar, have a deluxe meal there with a course meal with matched wine served. It's got some of the oldest vintages in the world in this wine cellar. And it's all in this beautifully restored mansion. So it's something very special in the Bahamas. And I think it's overlooked by some people because it's in the town and people kind of associate the town with the cruise passengers, and there's all the hustle and bustle. This is a real historic Caribbean. So there you go. Great Cliff Hotel and Restaurant.
Over the last 8 years, I've been to the Bahamas at least half a dozen times a year. And I will give an insider tip. At the airport, the Grey Cliff Lounge, if you are a priority card holder, you get, I think, a $10 or a $15 credit within the lounge. So if you're going, I think we're all going to have to get to the airport extra early now. So when you're flying out of the Bahamas, be sure to go to the Grey Cliff Lounge at the airport. And they do a great job with the truffle French fries. Is always my go-to on the way out. Thank you for sharing those properties, Brian. All amazing and all different, like the Caribbean, different destinations, different types of properties. It's what makes it exciting, I think, for you guys to probably be travel journalists and get to go visit all these exceptional places, because it's not one and the same ever.
Well, particularly something like Grey Cliff, where it's just it's the antithesis of the Caribbean beach vacation. It's all about culture and it's actually they almost have their own little ecosystem up there, because they've got, as Brian mentioned, the restaurant and the wine cellar, but across the street they have a cigar bar where they roll Cuban cigars, and then down the street is John Watling's distillery. I believe the Junkin Museum is also up in that area, but definitely the government house is up there, and the Queen's Staircase, which is historic. So I mean, if you've gone to a destination, I think that was one of your questions, but if you've gone to a destination multiple times, like the Nassau, and you've seen Paradise Island and you've seen Baha Mar, and you want to experience the Caribbean or a destination like Nassau in a little different way, that's a great property for doing that.
Bob makes great points.
Absolutely. Yeah. And another thing I love about some of the destinations that we've shared is they're all like Jade Mountain and Grey Cliff. They're family owned and managed. So you actually get to know the heart and the soul. It's not just going to a branded hotel. You get to know the people that put all their love and energy. And there's a lot of love and energy that goes into the hotel here, particularly in the Caribbean, with all the trials and tribulations that we battle. That I think makes it extra special.
Even those people, they're invested in those destinations. I mean, those are the resorts that are in it for the long haul. They're part of the community. We talked about Aruba, Bakudi and Tara, Edward Beeman's down there, Ewell Beeman's down there. I mean, those are the kinds of people who are not going to pull up anchor and sail away at the first economic downturn. They're going to be there. And they're going to be doing, and they're invested in the community, and they're part of the community. It's a real Caribbean experience when you go to those places.
Absolutely. Well, Sophie and I were so excited to speak to you both. We just started creating all of these questions, and we had a brainstorm session over the weekend, and we want to pick your brains a little bit for us and for the audience. Sophia, do you want to lead off with some questions?
Sure, I'll kick it off. So like Stephanie said, we had a little brainstorm, and we're like, and this, and what about this, and what about this? Especially now with the
That's what Bob and I do at press conferences.
Yeah.
And I said, Sophia, they're used to this, so let's just grill them. They're used to being on the other side.
Yeah, it's usually the other way.
Yeah.
So this is so this is our exclusive little press conference with the two of you. Especially now with things changing, one of the things we were curious about is how or have you been shifting your writing tone with everything that's been taking place?
You want to grab that one
I'll
first?
let Bob start. Yeah, Bob, why don't you?
Okay. Honestly, I mean, I've done some COVID specific stories. So of course, in those, that's what you're writing about is how this is affecting the tourism landscape. I think going forward, though, we're definitely going to have to, it's the elephant in the room. You can't ignore it. So it's going to have to be baked into every story that we write on some level, at least for the foreseeable future, is the safety aspect. I mean, and, there's been other instances in our writing careers, and Brian can attest to this too, where you've had to address safety issues. Whether it's an island that had crime recently, Natalie Holloway. There have been times in the past where we've had to directly address those things, and I think that's just the way we're going to have to do it going forward. I don't think you're not making the resorts out any less appealing. It's just that but resorts that do the best job of ensuring safety in this time will be the ones that get the better attention, I think. So,
So in terms of
I have to agree with Bob. I mean, it's a global pandemic, so that means it impacts everybody. There's no way not to address it, and it certainly has had a profound impact on travel. Of course, we all know, but so we're going to have to tell the story of how travel is going to progress after this. I was talking with some other folks who were saying, maybe we can, not always address it. And I know we had some conversations at Travel Pulse months ago when it was first happening about how much we needed to address it. But in a sense, we all have to now become somewhat students of this illness, and know what safety means and what future safety is going to mean. But at the same time, we can't give up what people travel for to begin with. And the Caribbean dreaming hashtag is a good one, I think, because travel is about dreaming. And we're dreaming about where we want to go next and where we go in the future. And if anything, this has made our past experiences even more valuable and more memorable, because we know how rare and how wonderful an opportunity it is to be able to travel. So, we encourage travel at travelpulse.com. We want people to travel. We want to help travel agents enable people to travel, but we have to give them the proper information to help them do that safely.
I mean, it's kind of a fine line, right? Because on the one hand, everybody wants to travel to get away from all this stuff. So they don't want to be beaten over the head, I think, with this messaging. So I think, you've got to find a way to kind of give them the details that they're looking for, what's going to be expected, how the experience is going to be different than it might have been in the past. But then, then just let it, kind of let it go and go back to talking about the things we would be talking about anyway.
Agree.
Very good. And I think we're all COVID fatigued. Like, it's just so much all the time, which is why we wanted to keep travel dreaming. And as much as all four of us travel, we're curious what makes engaging content. So what do you feel like makes engaging content, or can you speak about one of your most engaged stories?
Wow, what makes engaging content? Well, I'll give a dual answer. I know as far as suppliers and destinations, several of the Caribbean destinations have been posting parties, weekend parties, DJ sessions with DJs from the destination, cooking demonstrations, Caribbean rum drink making, cocktail mixing, and even these open webcams where you're looking at a view of the beach and you can hear the waves kind of rolling and just feel kind of the atmosphere. And I don't know if that would mean anything another time, but I watched one of those the other day and I was like, wow, this works at some level. So it felt pretty good to look out over the beach. I could be on a beach, but it felt like close. So that's the kind of content that I've enjoyed seeing from the suppliers and the destinations. News-wise, I know Travel Pulse, we've been covering things like how agencies can cope with this situation, the available support that's coming from organizations like ASTA, the American Society of Travel Advisors, and other organizations. Our publication is about helping agents sell. So we're also trying to keep them updated on what destinations will be available and what flights are available. So some of the information about ease of traveling and how folks should go about serving their clients and what kind of information they need to get to their clients.
Yeah, and to pick up on Brian's first point, I mean, and I do, I do a lot of, I do write travel trade, but I also do consumer facing content. And I mean, I think anything that and particularly now, any content that that's transportive, that brings you to the place that you're writing about and puts you there, puts you on the beach with a cocktail in your hand, especially now. I mean, I've been writing a series of stories for Caribbean Journal and we did a little curated list of Caribbean songs that you would hear at a beach resort, and that kind of stuff where, you want people to kind of engage in that content and be like, oh yeah, I remember hearing that song, and I remember hearing the Big Bamboo. And
Max on the call. Max, he was on the webinar last week and he still hasn't shared his Spotify list. He's been putting together Caribbean Spotify lists. So
yeah. But I think that's always been the case with travel writing, right? I mean, you've always, the job of the travel writer has always been to travel writing, I think, is fundamentally aspirational. You want to tell people these are the places, these are really cool places, and this is what I felt about it and how I experienced it, and you should want to go there too. And I think now, especially, that's super valuable.
Absolutely.
So with from the past and even now, how do you both establish connection and trust with the properties that you work with?
Do you mean our trust for them or their trust of us?
I know.
Vice versa.
I mean, I think it works both ways in the sense that it's all about honesty. I mean, this business isn't any different than any other business. It's about personal relationships and honesty and trust, and so properties that represent themselves, in a straightforward manner and who hire public relations firms that represent them in a straightforward manner, and when you ask questions, give you honest answers, and I mean, they're the way we travel, they're all going to try to treat you well and probably treat you like a VIP, and that's something that we understand as travel writers, that we're going to get that kind of experience. That so you got to try to dig down and and figure out everybody else gets treated at that resort. So I think the people who try not to, to whitewash things when you're on property and who kind of give you who don't try to steer you away from, possible negatives and things like that. I mean, that to me, that always, makes me respect properties more. So.
I'm right in line with Bob. It's about honesty and veracity. And, I've had people in the past ask, oh, well, you work for a trade publication and they sponsored the trips often and you're there. You can't really say anything is good or you can't really say anything is bad, and it's not quite like that. We're there to evaluate how a property serves the people that it markets to. If it's a family resort, is it providing what families want? One of the things I do when I'm at a resort or on a cruise ship and stuff, in an atmosphere is just walk around and I'm looking at everyone and seeing if they're enjoying themselves. And when it seems like they are, the property is probably doing, what it promised it, the people who are there, clients. So we want honesty, as Bob said, and we want the veracity, and we're going to cover it in the same way. Are you, that's what I try to do. Are you providing what you promised, and are people here having a good time? Are they enjoying themselves? It's a vacation, right? So that's the number one. Are you having a good time?
I mean, we're always going to end up going and talking to people who are staying at the resort, at the bar, and seeing how their experience is. So, you might as well be honest, because then if we hear a totally different story from the people at the bar.
Great point, Bob. I mean, you're at the resort the whole week. It's kind of hard to avoid anyone. So, and don't tell them you're a travel writer.
Okay. I'll never leave you alone.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Do you two have aspects of writing that you focus on? So an interest of sustainability or food or culture, community? What do you guys like to really dive in and write about?
Well, Bob, if I'll start. When you mention sustainability, again, it's there's a difference between, I guess, kind of novel, kind of just cursory efforts, and then those that are a little more, substantial. And I think, as Bob mentioned, Jade and Stephanie mentioned as well, Jade Mountain and the operation run by the Trubetskoys is very exemplary in that area. Just trying to use natural resources and recycle and do genuine things to work with the community as well to have a sustainable practices at the resort and a sustainable resort. And then in the other areas, culture, cuisine. I mean, you're talking about Caribbean destinations where that's part of the gold right there, culture and cuisine and aspects of how folks enjoy themselves and what they do in the afternoons and things that you can join in with them. I've been in St. Lucia for the Gros Islet street party on Friday nights, and it's a party that anyone could go to, that locals and visitors go to. It's fun and safe, and it's kind of like any well-attended street party. There's great food, street food, and sights and sounds. So that's something distinct to St. Lucia. And Barbados has something kind of like that with the Oystons fish fry on Friday night. Great street party, and it's the Caribbean. So beautiful, gentle breezes. You're happy to be out at night and walking around and meeting folks. So
and in Puerto Rico, every day is a street party.
There you go.
Yeah.
Is that right? I haven't done that. Well, I've been to San Sebastian Festival, which is
Santurce, right? Yeah, that's what the big party is.
Santurce, yeah.
Yeah, it's really good. Yeah, I mean, I would second that. I mean, I think culture, the cultural aspects are, I'm a huge history buff. So, I mean, I'm always interested in the history of the place, and history and culture go hand in hand. So, I mean, that's what I love to dive into when I write, when I have the opportunity. I don't like to badmouth all-inclusives because I think they definitely have their place, and there are times where you just want to unplug and be on the beach and just have drinks and food and not really, so I'm, I know that's a huge kind of criticism about, just going and never leaving the resort, but if it, and I there's a time and place, but for me, I really want to get out and learn and really learn about the place that I'm at, whether that's going to historic sites, as Brian said, going where the locals are, I mean, you're never going to be a local, but it's good to, meet people at a rum shack in Barbados, I mean, that's the cool, to me, that's always the coolest part of travel is really understanding how people live in the places that you visit, and where, because so much of that stuff is so deeply rooted in the culture. And then of course, food, there's amazing food, and there's a story behind most of the food in the Caribbean, that dates back to, to Africa, a lot of it, and then you have influences from South Asia. And so it's a,
we were just talking,
I'm sorry?
Oh, Michelle just mentioned Trinidad, and I was remembering doubles and Brian, I'm not sure if you know Brian, the CEO of tourism for Trinidad, took me to the actual place where they make doubles for all of the carts and the vendors in Trinidad. It was amazing.
Yeah, that's the thing that keeps you alive when you're doing carnival in Trinidad, are those doubles. It absorbs all the rum. And of course, for me, I love rum and the history of rum and the culture, so I try to get to a distillery wherever I go to. So you definitely find your sports is another interest of mine. So I think you when we write, we have assignments, and you can't always just go off on tangents and write about things that you like to write about. But when you can, you try to weave those into the stories as well.
Well, I'm sold on all of it right now.
Yeah.
I'll go to the
I want to
party.
mention, if we're talking about rum, we should also mention Martinique, where there is a distinctive brand of rum agricole, which is made from sugarcane and not molasses, as traditional rum is made. It's a different sort of rum, and there are several distilleries you can tour there, including the Clement Distillery, and it's. There's another one I want to mention. I'll remember it before the webinar's over. But Martinique is another. It's another family one. I just can't remember the name.
Rum JM is the one, Brian.
Rum JM is tremendous as well. I actually just gave away my last Rum JM bottle. So hoping I can get back to Martinique sometime soon. Maybe I can order it online. We'll see.
Yeah, and that's again, they have the whole rum trail there in Martinique, and of course, and just the name of the town is escaping me. But the town that was destroyed by the volcano. You remember, Brian?
Soufriere.
That's the volcano, but is it Saint Pierre? Is that the town? Is that the?
Sorry, you're right, Bob. Soufriere is a volcano. Saint Pierre is the town where everyone except one guy who was in jail.
Exactly.
And the guy who was in jail survived. The jail walls were so thick he wasn't killed.
But just amazing history there, So
1902.
Yeah, and rum.
Yeah.
Next.
Very good. All right, guys.
We're ready for more.
Ready for more. Here's the next one. So everybody thinks, I travel quite a bit. You guys travel quite a bit. And they're like, oh, they just have the life. All they do is just travel and sip drinks by the beach or eat and jump in the ocean. But it's all seems very glamorous. But is there a general structure that you follow when you're on a familiarization trip? Like how much you post, how many articles you're required to write or things like that? Like what's the requirement behind that?
This is good because we're both different. Bob is freelance and I work on staff. So Bob, go ahead.
Yeah, sometimes I think it's similar in that we're down there and we have a particular assignment that we're working on. It's always nice to go into a trip that with an actual assignment in hand. I think one of the biggest challenges actually when you're traveling on a FAM is finding the time to write while you're there, so that's, because you really want to experience the place and, having to go back to your hotel room and write stories every night, which I'm sure Brian probably grapples with a little bit more than me because my deadlines are probably a little longer than his, generally speaking. But, I think you always have your antenna up for story ideas and story angles because as a freelancer, you're going to be going back and pitching that destination or that trip or aspects of that trip to other publications. In terms of how much to post socially, it's dictated. I like to be able to post, a couple of things a day. 2 Instagram posts a day is a good one. Try to use Facebook to kind of document the experience while I'm there. But I don't think there's any hard and fast rule really.
Yeah, it's interesting because, as Bob said, well, when I'm Caribbean editor, often I'll have the assignment pre-planned and what we're going to do. It's something that it's going to go in our magazine. It has a longer lead time, but then I also write for our website. So as Bob said, there will be times when something will happen during the day, and I'm kind of running back to the room to write it and to make sure I can send it in as quickly as possible. So finding time to write what's happening there. And that fine balance between experiencing what's going on, because you're there for that, but also reporting and documenting it is something that comes with experience. It's something you have to learn. And I have to say, particularly when I'm on a trip sponsored by a tourism authority, finding any time to relax and be on the beach and all that kind of stuff, that's not easy, because usually on a sponsored tour by a tourism authority, they want to show you the whole country, and damn it, they're going to try. And you're going to get in a van early in the morning.
Sometimes you're on different flights and you don't stop till after dinner. Like it's intense.
Full days of touring resorts and areas and that kind of thing, and absorbing information in between, and listening to the lecture while you're on the bus on the way, to where you're going, and having a quick lunch, and then getting back on the bus, and then going to more places, and then going back to your hotel, and then having, a group meeting at night. Maybe you're meeting the GM or some. It's full days, and it's not what some folks think. We're just kind of, oh, what should I do next? And it's just like the vacation. Well, vacation, you do what you want to do. This is not
you're
a
only
vacation.
sharing the beautiful moments and drinks and beach and things. You're not saying, oh, I got up at 6 a.m. and I ran around 10 p.m.
The 3-hour wine, they don't suck, but they do cut into your productivity. So.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's a profession. It's a job. Yeah.
So I want to speak a little bit to Caribbean specific. I feel like the Caribbean is such a different animal than other destinations maybe you've written about or visited. Just in my experience over the last 10 years working in the Caribbean and living there, do you find protocol to be important in the Caribbean when you're meeting with people, visiting places, or perhaps in these different destinations or press conferences?
Should I start?
Whomever.
Yeah, Bob, why don't you? First.
I think one of the people, one of the things that I think visitors to the Caribbean don't necessarily understand is that it's actually a much more conservative and formal place than really you would think. I think people get, think it's a big party and everybody's drunk and, on the beach and it's not, that is not the Caribbean at all. It's a very, it's a much more conservative place, and protocol is important. When you're dealing with government officials, particularly, there's a certain we as Americans are very informal people. And maybe the British visitors are a little more attuned to this than Americans, but I think a certain amount of respect is due. And that's not just how you address people, but also how you dress. And I've made this mistake before, showing up at, for a Caribbean press trip with, t-shirts and shorts, and there are times where you want a collared shirt, or a jacket, and that's more of a protocol thing. That again, if you don't really, internalize that, it can be hard to remember that I'm not just going to the beach. So yeah, but you can add to that, Brian. But that it is important. It's more important than it would be in any American destination. Let's put it that way.
Again, I couldn't agree more with Bob, and I'm glad, Stephanie, you actually went into this area, because I think it's something that Americans in general don't realize, and that the Caribbean is really kind of a conservative place, and they're religious, and I think a lot of the image of I'm not blaming him, Bob Marley and marijuana smoking and laissez-faire kind of thing paints a little bit of an accurate picture of the Caribbean, which is really a conservative and traditional place. And my grandfather was from Antigua. And I remember when I was a kid, the 70s, being in my house in Brooklyn with my mom and my brother, we're playing around. And my mom asked me a question, and I said, yeah, or something like that. And he flipped down and went, you must say yes, sir, and yes, ma'am. And I'm like, okay. so that kind of, and he meant it. And that kind of reflects kind of, the attitude. But, they're not going to yell and scream at you. But at the same time, if people are a little bit sensitive to that and understand that that's a part of the Caribbean culture, it'll help. It helps them, and that is part of the Caribbean, and folks are friendly and stuff, but they believe in some of the what we might call old-fashioned ways, and it's charming in some sense.
I prefer it, like when I visit the schools, and it's not an ego-based thing. It's just hear a group of 35 kids say, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, good day, like just basic, it's just
Etiquette.
pleasant. It's nice. Etiquette. Yeah, that's the word I was searching for. So yeah, yeah, I enjoy it. So another question, and this is maybe a little controversial, but where do you think the fourth estate stands? Like, what are your thoughts presently on being a journalist and this climate in the media? Where do you think credibility, or where do you think we stand? Is it tough out there?
Bob?
I mean, not so much. I mean, I don't find it personally difficult because, I write about healthcare and I write about travel, and in those worlds, I mean, we're not getting the blowback that you get when you're talking about politics or even local news reporting, like this guy people getting in his face at the Trump rally on Long Island. I mean, we don't, we're not dealing with that kind of stuff in our jobs, I don't think. And so, to me, like, my sources are still very courteous and responsive. In the past, I've dealt a lot with government agencies in terms of reporting, and over the years, I would say those people have become less accessible and less responsive and more guarded. And that's just the reality of the world we live in. The state of journalism overall, I mean, we're not helped by 24-hour news channels and people tweeting before they've confirmed their facts, and a lot of the stuff that violates the basic rules of journalism that's creeped into our profession in the last 20 years. But there's a lot of great reporting going on, and journalists have always been the whipping boys. Everybody who delivers bad news or is actually responsible for making decisions is going to get their fair share of abuse. So I don't think that's going to change. I don't think it's ever changed. So.
Yeah, that's for sure. I'm there too. I mean, journalism's always been a difficult business. I mean, it's always been, as Bob says, when you're delivering bad news, it's easy to blame the messenger, and it's never been it's always been a business where you have to adapt and you have to be willing to shift because jobs come and go, and opportunities come and go, and publications come and go, and incidentally, the COVID-19 pandemic has hastened, if anything, the collapse of journalistic organizations and jobs, and like Bob, I lament some of the realities of today's journalism. In fact, that there's such an emphasis on speed and not on fact checking and accuracy, and that's unfortunate because Fourth Estate is a public service. I mean, any effective democracy needs, don't let anyone fool you, the press is not the enemy of the people. And any effective democracy needs a strong and robust press. That said, like Bob, I'm a travel journalist, and most of the companies I cover want to share their information and talk about travel. So it's not been difficult to talk and to get access to the folks who create travel experiences and the folks who sell them, and they're wonderful, hardworking people, most of them. So it's a really good experience, particularly with the Caribbean governments as well. I want to say they for the most part support journalistic activities and help us to report on their destinations. It's something that's vital, and I'm glad there is travel journalism. It's not easy, but if there's nothing worthwhile is easy. So I'm happy to be a part of it.
Great. Well, if you gentlemen have a couple more minutes, we have some questions in the chat. We're
Yeah,
just at the hour.
there are a couple of
Okay to-
good ones there, actually, yeah.
Yeah.
See one from Matt. He asks, can anyone speak to the pre-arrival protocols implemented to ensure COVID negative arrivals?
Well, who was it? And Brian, I think you probably got the same release today. I know I want to say it was maybe it was St. Lucia and so you can correct me if I'm wrong, or maybe I'll have to verify it, but at least one Caribbean destination just released protocols basically saying they want a positive or a negative COVID-19 test within 48 hours of you getting on the plane to go to their destination. So I think that's going to be a reality for sure, in all this. And a lot of it's speculative. That was actually the first concrete thing that I've seen from a destination. But I think if you kind of, extrapolate from what you're doing here, you're going to, I think some places are doing temperature, checks at the airport, which, maybe not that effective because not everybody has a temperature or they're asymptomatic. But I think you're going to see a lot of destinations requiring you to have some sort of certification, either an antibody test or a negative COVID-19 test before you even get on the plane. I think there was I think Iceland has a protocol for testing you when you arrive, which is not, which will suck if you test positive because I guess they're going to turn you around or put you in quarantine. So it'd be better to know before you left. Those rules seem to make more sense to me. So yeah.
And sandals, I read somewhere that sandals may be incorporating into their packages when you arrive, they'll give you the test or prior to you going. Like, so maybe some, more higher end resorts will be incorporating that process to make it easier.
Yeah. I mean,
yeah, I think that's
Yeah.
a possibility. Yeah, I think that's a possibility. And Bob has mentioned, I think it was St. Lucia that has sent out, I know I've seen a schematic of theirs of the protocol and the process, and it would incorporate, I believe, a 48-hour, a test from the previous 48 hours that shows you COVID free. And I know Jamaica has proposed, the Prime Minister has mentioned, it's not official yet, or official, but the Prime Minister has mentioned that there's a possibility of a tourist pass that certifies you as COVID-19 free, and then there's the possibility of you're moving around, leaving the resort, going around the island. They have to be prepared for all of those circumstances. So yeah, I think the CTO One Caribbean ONECaribbean.org onecaribbean.org CTO has an updated listing of some of the restrictions and the protocols that the islands are going to be adopting. So you can always check there.
I think CHTA
Yes.
has a resource center as well. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Just one thing on this. I mean, I know there's been a lot of freak out about vaccine. I mean, I think on one hand, everybody wants a vaccine. On the other hand, I know there's been a lot of pushback about the idea that you would need a vaccine to travel. Which may or may not happen. It may be down to, if we have good, reliable testing, a vaccine is probably not necessary. But it reminds me that if you go to certain developing countries in the world right now, you need certain vaccines to travel. So it's not really that different than what happens right now with malaria or other diseases.
Well, absolutely. And one time I was coming into Jamaica and they looked at my passport and I had been to Belize and Guatemala prior, and they're like, well, have you been tested for this and this and that and stuff I didn't even think about. I'm like, please let me in. I have an event.
No. Yeah, I mean, yes.
So
it's just the newest thing. I mean, that's what it is. I had to get my yellow fever shot for Uganda, right? I had to make sure that I had it. So it's very much, exactly that.
Mm-hmm. One other audience question. Do you think the low numbers of COVID in the islands are due to them closing quickly and early?
Probably. I mean, it makes sense. I don't think anyone is, some of it's just luck, I mean, yes, closing early, there are places in this country that are wide open, but that just hasn't really gotten there yet. So, it's hard to say. I mean, it certainly didn't hurt. And I made the point, I've made the point to a few people that islands, in a way, are pretty well positioned to deal with code, because you can, if you're an island, you can really control who comes in and out of the country. Most people are coming by plane, or even if they're coming by cruise ship, you can control those access points and make sure that nobody's coming in through testing or otherwise with the virus, which you can't do from New York to New Jersey, or, we tried here in Rhode Island, but they shot us down. We were stopping people at the border for a while. They didn't like that. But it's hard. You have open borders. You got a million different roads going into the state. There's only a couple of ways to get into an island. So, if they do it right, they really can control it and make sure that it doesn't put the local populace at risk.
Yeah, I agree. The size and the relative size of these islands compared to the United States, or North America, and their isolation as islands, their relative isolation allows for measure control. Some of the islands do have good coordinated health networks to serve their own population. So they were able to get a handle on it. And again, as Bob indicated, they have control of their borders, and there are only so many access points. And I think they took these things seriously, most of the islands, and then again, it's just luck. We're not scientists. I don't know. The scientists aren't even sure exactly how all of this, how the disease spreads, and its manifestations. So luck might be a part of it.
I'll add to that too. And Caribbean leaders, they're ferocious. Like Bahamas, you had a whole lockdown all weekend.
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw the Prime Minister of St. Martin, but she went viral. She said, "I told you to do your shopping 2 weeks in advance, and if you haven't done it and you don't have bread, then eat crumbs. You're not going to the grocery store." Like, so
I saw that. People love that. I was like, this sounds like every female Caribbean relative I have admonishing you for not doing something.
Yeah.
That you should have done.
Right. So I mean,
some of the restrictions were more severe than we've seen in other places. The 24-hour curfews and that kind of thing. So yeah.
And and to their credit, they know that if they don't get control of it, they can't reopen, depending on the feeder markets, but still. So I think they did really, really well with that. Okay. Question from me. Do you have any familiarization trips planned this year? Are you moving past dreaming and actually getting to the doing?
I don't have any fam trips planned yet, but as I see these destinations open, I'm starting to put out feelers, I think, to some of the resorts and things. I mean, I think part of the issue really is, to me, it's almost more like, and I'd have to grapple with this. I think the hesitation is more getting on the plane than actually being on the island. And so that's, you need a little more assurance on that, and maybe destinations that have nonstop flights from the U.S. will do better. Need more when you see pictures of, United Airlines or whatever with, people crowded in, not wearing masks. It's just like, all right, well, maybe they're not really ready yet, But once you get past that, so once I feel safe to travel by air again, then I definitely want to be, down there among the first people, because that's our jobs, to be down there reporting and telling people, hey, this is what it's like. And, this is what the reality right now. There's not a lot of reporting out there about what the reality of travel in the COVID world is going to be. So, as a journalist, we want to be there. We want to be able to report. And, of course, we do want the drinks on the beach too. But I want to tell people, hey, this is what it was really like going through the airport and getting on the plane and going through customs and going through immigration and being on the resort, and are people wearing masks and all that kind of stuff. So that's I'm excited for the opportunity once the time's right. Yeah.
Same here. It's almost like I couldn't add anything to what Bob just said. I just, I'm waiting for the chance. It's funny. You guys were talking about the BVI, and Bob was mentioning how one of the main ways to travel there is to be on a private yacht. And one of my last trips just before everything kind of took off and happened was a trip to the BVI, and we stayed briefly at Scrub Island Resort for a couple nights, and then we did a private yacht charter, which I've been on lots of cruise ships, but I'd never done that before. So that was a new experience for me. And then we also made a day stop at Richard Branson's Island Resort, which is fabulous, and which I also saw a report that he may leverage because they're losing so much money in the Virgin operation, just with travel.
I think he just dumped his space stock in business.
Yeah, which kind of shows you how this is impacting everyone. So in travel. So yeah, and then as Bob said, I'm steeling myself for the return. I'm anxious for the return to travel because that's what I do. That's my livelihood. But I'm also steeling myself for the experience. I've read some reports of like one guy who traveled from Japan to Hong Kong. Normally a 5-hour trip took him 19 hours with all the protocols involved. So we're going to have to see what it's like to get on a plane from JFK, in my example, to fly to Barbados or to fly to Jamaica, and what's involved. And I'll have to, describe it for the travel agents who read our publication.
I've got 2 N95 masks that are just sitting here waiting for this first trip. So I found them in my garage. I was like, these are gold. I'm keeping these for my first Caribbean trip.
Absolutely. All right.
So we have, this has been a full hour. I would love to ask one last question. What is your most engaged story that you've had and why?
Oh, wow.
It's a hard one because while you think, Brian, I'll because I don't really have a good.
I'm thinking.
Most engaged. My best story recently was a healthcare story, actually. So I wrote a COVID story that got 3.2 million page views on Healthline. But so I don't have a good travel story for you. And that was basically, how to have your house stocked for for COVID. So that was obviously, sometimes it's just a matter of having the right subject matter at the right time. I think some of the more engaging stories that I've done over the years, I just did something on James Bond's Caribbean for Caribbean Journal, and that's, I don't know. Sometimes those are the funny ones where people, people like the Caribbean, but they love James Bond, and so those come together, and they're like, oh wow, this is where Thunderball was filmed, or this is where James Bond had a drink, or went to the casino in Casino Royale. I mean, so it's weird, and obviously SEO has a lot to do with it too. I mean, it's not just us what we're writing; it's whatever the hot topic is at that moment. So that's a great answer, but I figure I give Brian time to think. So
Bob is right. A lot of times you have luck is involved again, and you wonder why some stories get the reactions they do, and some don't. And I know that. I write for our magazine, which is monthly, and then our website, which is constant. And one of the more story I got more reaction, or a lot of reaction on, was just the building of the Baja Mar Resort and some of the activity that went on around that. And the original developer wound up suing the construction company, which is a large Chinese government firm. And there was all kinds of difficulty involved in building this resort and having it come. It was dramatic. Yeah. And it also impacted the entire government of the Bahamas because there were billions literally of loans, involved. So ironically, after all of that turmoil, the resort is really very nice. And it came out really nicely, and that was not necessarily didn't seem to be in the cards initially. So there was a lot of reaction to that story. And travel agents initially, when the opening dates were pushed back more than a year, a lot of our travel agent readers really wanted to keep up on what was happening there. They had a lot of cancellations, created some problems. So that was a big story. And I just want to mention, I know it probably was we have columns in travelpulse.com. It was one of the columns that people reacted to that I wrote. And it was about my own travel mishaps, which range from from getting locked in my river boat bathroom on the Yangtze River and having to break out of the bathroom, and then having the ship officials accuse the drunk American of trashing his room, and they were threatening to arrest me, and so that was kind of interesting. And travel is you're just out there, and you're you're trying to enjoy yourself and do your job, but you're in the world and things happen like COVID-19 while you might be out there. And I just want to mention, it's not a story, but or it's not a story that I worked on, but I feel a lot of sympathy for them. But I want to mention there are about 100 cruise ships floating around off the Florida coast with about 100,000 crew members on who haven't been off those ships since March.
That's insane.
And yeah, it's a problem with the government. It's not just the cruise lines, the government's allowing them in.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have nowhere to dock, and then also our government is requiring the cruise lines now to arrange all of the transportation and for those folks back home, but they can't use commercial flights, they can't use hotel rooms, they can't use taxis or anything like that. Mm-hmm. So it's a long and difficult process, and those folks out there are caught in the middle. So that's another thing that happens in travel, but hopefully that'll be resolved. And we can get back to something close to normal again, because I want to get out there just like everyone else.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you guys. We definitely went over the hour. This conversation was so great, and we really enjoyed it.
I totally appreciate it.
Everybody for joining us. Wishing you guys a great day.
Likewise. Thanks for having us.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
See you at a conference or somewhere soon.
Hopefully.
Fingers and toes.
Everything crossed.
All right. Have a good day, everyone. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.